Less than 2 weeks from kickoff for Nebraska, and an all-important question has come into focus for me while visiting with my dog's vet. Let's dig into it.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the fall sports get revved up. We want to let you know that FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer and into the fall. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right, good morning. Happy Monday morning. We are less than 2 weeks away from kickoff now. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic, Connor Happer from 1620 The Zone. I'm back to work today. I'm doing my daily radio show today for the first time in 3 weeks.
Built the suspense.
Yeah, we'll see if my takes and thoughts have changed. So welcome to a Monday show as we get closer and closer to the season. Nebraska had their I guess their big scrimmage, like their barometer setting scrimmage of fall camp over the weekend. Matt Rhule spoke afterwards. There were some interesting things to come out of that. But Mitch, I want to give you a pat on the back first. Great tease, number one. Great tease for I'm into that. If somebody's like, hey, I heard this interesting topic and it came from my vet, listen for this, I'm clicking every single time. So tell us.
We're learning as we get going, just in time for the season.
What did your vet want to talk about?
Okay, so every year around this time in August, I get the postcard in the mail. It's time to take Scooter, my dog, who's now 8, in to get his shots updated. And every year, like clockwork, my vet, Dr. Morgan, who is a big sports fan, he comes into the room as the dog is like shaking and cowering in the corner because he's recognized the smell and knows that that's not a nice place. Bad things happen there. I mean, really good things, but in his mind, it's bad things. Yeah. Dr. Morgan comes in with a question about football. And this year it was very to the point. He just walked in and he said, "Can I drink the Kool-Aid?" So simple, yet I think ever so meaningful, and just brings into focus like the nervousness, but the excitement at the same time of Nebraska fans. You know, they've heard this offseason about all the storylines and the promises, but they've all been burned before so many years in a row. So let's just answer this for them, Connor. Can you drink the Kool-Aid this year?
Well, I think it's really, and you make a great point. The mental part of the fan base is something that is really, really interesting. It's to the point where, I mean, it's been to the point for a long time now. You just have to see it to believe it. But it looks different. It feels a little bit different. They have definitely done some things where everyone would look at them and say, wow, they're better at wide receiver. Wow, they're better at quarterback. And it's year 2.
Defensive line. Yeah.
That defensive line is year 2. And that, a lot automatically gets better just from it being year 2 if you feel like you have a good coach. But I understand the hesitancy. So given that it was the big scrimmage of fall camp, Matt Rhule on Saturday kind of talked about, he was just asked the general question from Sipple, I believe. And it was like, hey, what'd you see? What'd you see in the scrimmage today? And this is a really good, it's about 30 seconds here. This is a really good kind of overarching view of where he thinks the team's at right now and where he thinks the program's at right now. Here's Matt Rhule from over the weekend.
Not a great team last year. What you end up having is a lot of guys who kind of play because they can kind of execute. When you want to make the jump to being a good team, it's everyone starts to execute. So now it's the guy who can execute and then go make the big play. And who's making those plays. And so I really like where we are. I really do. I really like where we are, except I don't like some of the second unit production today. And the offense has to clean up a couple more procedural penalties if they want to be the type of team like that, can play grown man football, can do the things that you do on Sundays, on Saturdays.
So if you're asking the question,
it's the Kool-Aid question.
Should I drink the Kool-Aid? I would have to ask you one more question back. And that would be, what are your expectations? What is drinking the Kool-Aid? Is drinking the Kool-Aid, or do you feel like you're drinking the Kool-Aid if you say out loud, hey, I think we're going to go to a bowl this year? Then yeah, you should be drinking the hell out of that Kool-Aid. If should you be drinking the college football playoff Kool-Aid?
Chug it.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably stay away from that one a little bit. It might be a little bit dangerous. But I think Rhule kind of encapsulated all that there. They feel like they have a good team, and there's some questions to be answered on if they could take that next step beyond that.
How do you define success for Nebraska football in 2024? I mean, we've probably talked about that 50 times on different episodes since we started this in April. And I think the most realistic answer, probably what my vet would define as, and my vet is now symbolic for all of Husker Nation. Like these are in all of like the circles of people that you might encounter in different aspects of your life. Like we're just going with Dr. Morgan, but what would you define as success for Nebraska in 2024? And I think most people would say it's like 7 to 8 wins. Like that would be very good. That would signify tremendous progress for Matt Rhule's program in year 2. So if that's the Kool-Aid, if that's drinking the Kool-Aid that you think that they can get to 7 or 8 wins, then my advice would be to go ahead and drink the Kool-Aid. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you're just going to experience the same disappointment that you've grown so accustomed to over the last 5 to 7 years.
Mitch, I totally agree with you. Like that is such an important point. Like you're fans. Like you're fans. Like if you don't believe in your team, then watching sports, which is something that is just inherently supposed to be fun and a release from real life, is inherently like mind-numbingly, it's horrible. It's a miserable experience. Like if you want to take in your sports that way, always being worried about, coming in underneath expectations or telling your friends in Iowa that we're going to be good and they keep making fun of me because we're not good, whatever. Like, I don't, you kind of just have to
eat real thing.
Like you just have to eat those punches if they come in underneath what you think they're going to be or what you're telling your Iowa friends that they are. So I would always advise fans to drink the Kool-Aid. It's more fun that way.
It is.
And then embrace whatever happens after.
People just don't want to have their hopes and dreams crushed again. I think everybody here in this camp, because there's been so much positivity around the program for a while. I mean, really since Dylan Raiola flipped his commitment from Georgia to Nebraska, everybody's been looking for Matt Rhule when we got to this time leading up to the first game to just say that the team is there, that it's ready, that they're going to be good, that you can expect to come to the stadium on August 31st. And like, you're not going to be stressed in the third quarter of the UTEP game. And, he very clearly has not said that. Like, this is the second Saturday in a row where Rhule's come out and you could argue has like thrown some water on some of the excitement that exists among Husker Nation. This week he said they committed some costly penalties. We heard it there in that soundbite from him. He said in a part that we didn't just listen to that the first team offense came out and didn't do well at the beginning and then got their stuff together and had a couple of nice long drives, but the number 2 offense committed, I think he said maybe 4 turnovers. Ouch. I mean, he wants them to act like the ones they're not. He said that he told his coaches to make sure the best players are playing. So he's not taking the approach like this team is ready, this team is there. And that leads me to this question I'll ask you. Is this actually just Matt Rhule holding his team to a higher standard than what Nebraska has been held to in recent years?
Absolutely. I've always said that with how fans sort of talk about this too. Like if we always do this as well, Mitch, like we look at last year, we've spent all this entire offseason looking at last year. Are they going to be better than last year on offense? Yeah, they're not going to turn the ball over 100 times and have no running game and have no passing game. Like, yes, they're going to be better on offense, but that's obviously not the standard that he's holding them to. They went -17 in the turnover margin last year. He wants them to go +7. -5 would be an incredible jump from -17 from last year, but that's not what he wants. That he's holding them to, right? He wants them to be actually like a functionally good team rather than just better than what they've been for the last 7 years when they haven't gone to a bowl, when it's been horribly dysfunctional during that period of time.
in a lot of the Frost years and the first year of Rhule, I think there was a concern on the part of the staff that the team was so fragile that it couldn't handle, the players individually and collectively as a group couldn't handle the kind of talk that we've heard some of this year in camp, like airing their problems, putting the speech on the internet for all to see about how this is why you lose. Like that might have just ruined the psyche of the whole team, or at least there was real worry that it would have. And Matt Rhule's not doing that. Like he's not treating these guys with kid gloves right now. And really, like you have to go back. I guess Bo Pelini did that, but it was tough love from him. He didn't come out and fluff his team up when it was not warranted. But really, this reminds me more because Matt Rhule's personality and the way that he handles things publicly is vastly different than Bo Pelini. This reminds me more of like the Osborne years. This is not to say that they're going to have an Osborne type season, but he was really the last coach who just refused to praise his team until he saw it on the field in a given season.
Yeah, it doesn't really do the team any good to be like, yeah, I think you guys are a good team before you. No, I mean the last time we saw them, they were dysfunctional and they did go 5-7 and they did have 5 wins. They were 5-3 and then lost their last 4 games all by a possession. So that's the last time we see them. Like I always say, you only get the test. So I think that's good, but do not be surprised if they take this massive leap from where they were a year ago. And Matt Rhule is like, yeah, this is kind of what I thought would happen because, that's the way he's talking about this team right now. And frankly, that's how it's always been with Matt Rhule coach teams.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll take a break here, come back for segment number 2. We'll piggyback off this topic a little bit, get into some more things that Matt Rhule had to say over the weekend, including an injury update to a key piece on defense. A reminder to please subscribe and follow along on Twitter at LockedOnNEB. You could also email the show. We might be highlighting an email during the show. LockedOnNEB@gmail.com. We'll be back after this. All right, it's Tapper here for the FanDuel Sportsbook. We are gearing up for fall sports season, and we are still a little bit in the summer doldrums. It's baseball. You find your spots there, but college football futures are out. NFL futures are out. You could pick teams to win the division, to not win the division, to not make the playoffs. There's a team that you're higher on than most, or you're lower on than some. You got to take advantage of this right now. August is the perfect time to do that with the FanDuel Sportsbook. And here's the added bonus for you. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So take the $5, place it on the Royals to win a singular baseball game or Bobby Witt Jr. to get a hit, whatever it is, and bang, you got yourself $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. $150 to bet on whatever you'd like for the upcoming seasons. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Use that code and make it all count, my friends. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Okay, second segment on this Monday, the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone, back at work. Connor, on a Monday. How was the last weekend of parenting an infant when you were away on paternity leave?
Good. It's the days all I've been working a little bit at the Omaha Storm Chasers games, and sometimes people ask me what day it is, and I don't really know. So I'll be excited to get back into a little bit of a routine this week or close to it, and then still waking up in the middle of the night with the kid. But it's gone very well so far. Thanks for checking in. It's great. We love it.
Your daughter will be there to destroy your routine whenever it becomes something that feels like it's normal again.
Yeah, that's the whole thing so far. Like whenever you feel like you're doing really well at something, it's like, no, you're not. You actually suck at this. So yeah, it's great.
Don't worry. There's only like 18 more years of that and you'll be fine. So, So this is the last weekend without college football, which is reason for celebration. We've got week 0 games coming up this weekend, and then it just rolls right through into week 1 with that big Colorado North Dakota State game on Thursday night, a couple of days before the Nebraska opener against UTEP. So I celebrated the last weekend without college football in the 2024 calendar year by demolishing a trampoline in my backyard. So I answered the question. We're talking about a demo project. So like several years ago, my sister-in-law,
you were like going so hard on the trampoline. You were like out there jumping on the trampoline. You're like, I was getting after
man. I'm not doing that. No chance. A few years ago, my sister-in-law, who will not hear this, and I wish she would, because she proclaims herself to be a big Nebraska football fan. She has lots of commentary. If somebody hears this and knows my sister-in-law, Stacy, tell her that I'm talking about her on this show and that she should tune in. She blackmailed me a few years ago into purchasing a trampoline for my children. This is like 5-6 years ago. I mean, like evil tactics of making videos and just the greatest guilt you could ever imagine. So the trampoline went up and it was good for like 1 year. And then my kids just stopped using it. And it would get used only by like neighbor kids who came over. And then I was worried that they were going to fall off and break their neck. And so finally it got kind of mangled in the 90-mile-an-hour winds from a few weeks ago that came through Omaha. And finally my wife said, just get rid of it, take it down. So she asked if we should hire someone to take down the trampoline. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I mean, building things can be difficult at times and frustrating. Destroying them is just, I mean, it was cathartic, man. I took a sledgehammer out there and just I was covered in sweat on Saturday afternoon after like an hour and a half of just wrecking this trampoline. And I finished and I fit it all in one giant trash can, the whole thing, like metal poles and so it's going to get taken away by the sanitation company tomorrow. I can't wait.
Look at that. And you get to stand there and you get to say, look, I did this by myself. We didn't have to hire anybody for this.
Oh, I mean, there was not even a second of thought about that. Like, I'm not hiring somebody to wreck a trampoline in my backyard. So anyway, also on Saturday, Nebraska was scrimmaging, as we mentioned early in the show, and we might have a quarterback decision this week. It sounds like we are going to have a quarterback announcement this week. That's at least according to Matt Rhule on Saturday. Rhule's going to talk on Wednesday on the Husker Radio Network coaches show. He's the first guest of the year. So could it come then? Is that when this big announcement is going to come, or maybe on Friday, Rhule will be the speaker to the assembled media at the Hawks Center,
and then he'll have his Monday press conference of game week as well. So he's got a few opportunities to do that. Yeah, it did seem from what he said over the weekend that it was, I mean, the decision's been made,
right? But it's got to be announced.
It's got to be announced. So it's imminent. It's coming. It's just how you want to roll it out and, what kind of fanfare you want to put behind it. I will say the other thing, while we know that Dylan Raiola is going to be the starting quarterback whenever that's announced, a lot of praise, speaking of Kool-Aid, on top of Danny Kaelin, who is, if there was ever a question about, 1, 2, 3 kind of a pecking order, and then where the break is in the quarterback room, there's a couple other guys in there, including Jalen Gramstad, who transferred from Northwestern College in Iowa and AIA Player of the Year. Kaelin is, in that top group, certainly. Matt Rhule says he's got the it factor, which is, that kind of blew me away a little bit over the weekend.
And that he's going to play in the NFL someday. He said there's both freshmen. He didn't limit it to those freshmen in the room. Maybe there will be like 4 or 5 quarterbacks from the Nebraska QB group who play in the NFL. But at the very least, it's going to be Kaelin and Raiola, according to Matt Rhule, out of the Saturday press conference. So okay,
interesting.
This has got like Eric Crouch, Bobby Newcomb written all over it. I'm old enough to remember that. That little scenario and how that played out over the years. Of course, neither played quarterback in the NFL, but these guys are different. They were talented and athletic in their respective way. So one won a Heisman Trophy. We can only hope that Nebraska can only hope that it repeats that success.
Javen Wright who has dealt with some blood clots throughout his college football career, was
various other issues. Yeah,
in various other issues, was is indefinitely out. It didn't. Rhule didn't seem, just kind of read between the lines here. Rhule didn't seem like overly concerned. He was just like, hey, yeah, like he can't play football right now, so we're just we have to be without him, and they're going forward with their prep for the season and everything. So they know that they're going to be without him for a period of time. But any thought on the Javen Wright news?
Yeah, I mean, not an injury. It doesn't sound like an injury. He said a health condition, a health situation. And I mean, I don't think it's like, oh, he's got the flu. So something's going on. I mean, you might surmise that this is in some way related to some of the other health issues that Javen has had in his time at Nebraska. So, but Rhule didn't get specific, and that's just tough because he's a guy who's just really pushed to get back and has been resilient, and I think was in position to have a year that could propel him into the NFL. He's that kind of an athlete. So they're going to go as planned with John Bullock and Mekhi Bayer as important pieces at inside linebacker. Right, if he gets back, will fit into that mix. I do think he'll get back, at least based on the way Rhule put it on Saturday. And then Steph Thompson, the newcomer out of Syracuse, Vincent Shavers, the true freshman from Miami, and Vince Genatone. Maybe this propels him into being like an injury away from getting on the field in the rotation at that position. He's the transfer from Montana out of North Platte.
One or two more notes here. I want to skip ahead one. I thought the comments were on the kicker situation were a little bit illuminating over the weekend, just with, and it wasn't necessarily in relation to Alvano's health. It was more about what John Hull has done so far in camp. And I mean, that sounds like, from the way that Rhule, presented that almost sounds like a full blown like competition at this point. I thought that was really interesting from over the weekend.
Is it even a competition? I mean, I listened to it and I thought John Hull's the guy, and he didn't even mention Alvano. And then he was asked specifically about Alvano, and he said, well, yeah, he's still working to get back. And we know that Tristan was hurt to enter camp and was behind in his progress. And he's been out there. We saw him a week ago Friday in a green jersey kicking on the practice field. So on the 120 now for more than a week. And still it's John Hull who's getting the first mention. I would expect that John Hull is going to be the guy kicking field goals when they open the season on August 31st. Yeah,
really, really interesting, and something that it didn't come out of nowhere, obviously, because we've been monitoring the Alvano injury situation for a while here. But Nebraska feels like they can trust Hull. That's a big deal. Anything else catch your ear from what Rhule said? I mean, it was a good, like I said, it was a good kind of like, here's the barometer, here's where we are type of press conference from him over the weekend.
The only other thing I'd mention quickly here before we get to a break and then to the third segment and talk about the offensive line is the secondary. And Rhule said that they're going to go with their 5 best guys, which we've known all along, but he really just kind of laid it out and said, we've got Tommy Hill, Marquise Buford, Isaac Gifford, Deshaun Singleton, and Malcolm Hartzog. And it's like, all right, there you go. There's your starting secondary.
And he said, I feel great about all those guys.
Which means that Buford is playing corner because we know who the safeties are in that group. And while Hartzog has played corner in the past, they've settled him in at free safety right now. And they want to do him a service and keep him there in order to allow him to have consistency in practice. Buford, if there's anybody who's going back and forth between positions, it may be him when Bly Hill is 100% ready to go. He is back in teamwork now and doing just about everything. So it may not be long before Bly Hill, who won that job in the spring, is ready to go. And then they have to make a decision about what to do with Buford or maybe what to do with Hartzog. We'll see. But, you're going to play more than 5 guys. But those are the top 5, and that's who they want to go with right now.
And then Sierra Wright seems to be a bit of a mover this fall. Yeah. We'll see what happens with him as well. But they have some depth, and younger guys are coming along. So, yeah.
He's getting mentioned. The USC transfer.
Confidence on the secondary going into the season here.
Yeah. All right, we'll come back in the third segment and talk about the offensive line, inspired by an email that we received at the Locked On inbox over the weekend. So that is next. First, I want to remind you that college football is back, and the Locked On College Football podcast kicks off the action with a live season preview at 6 o'clock Central on Tuesday, August 20th on the Locked On College 24/7 streaming YouTube channel. The 4-part series covers each of the 4 major conferences with discussion on which ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC teams have a shot at the expanded CFP. So be sure to check out this special streaming on Locked On College's 24/7 YouTube channel or on the Amazon Fire TV. There will be discussion about Nebraska when the Big 10 segment arrives. So be sure to check that out. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Mitch Sherman here for eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the winning formula for championships, to win championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to keep you allow you to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. They've got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With more than 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. It's got all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
All right, wrapping things up here on a Monday, Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer. We did get an email to the inbox, and it just so happened to fall right in line with the Kool-Aid topic that we were throwing out at the beginning of the show. This one specifically pertains to the offensive line. Let's say hello to Shane in Columbus. Here's Shane.
Thank you for the email.
Thank you for the email, Shane. We appreciate that. And shout out to Seabus as well. We love the Pawnee Plunge out there. Great water park. He says, "Hi guys, I'm new to your daily podcast, but I really enjoy it. I just hit subscribe. Good idea by him. Long story short, I think the offensive line and turnovers will make or break our season. I'm not really buying the fact that we have a lot of experience on the line, buying the fact that it's a positive. Turner Corcoran is the guy that played a lot, but he didn't make a jump last year. I saw him get beat continually. And my thought is that if he isn't good by now, well, then he just isn't going to be good. Bryce Benhart had an awful first few years, but he did make a jump. So I'm asking you fellas, don't sugarcoat it. Do you feel we will see improvement from the O-line, and do we have any depth that is ready to play?"
I mean, he brings up some valid points. Turner Corcoran did not make a jump last year. I would say that he's dealt with some injuries that limited his ability to be in the position to make a jump. And that's what the difference was with Bryce Benhart. And okay, also he just kind of got his act in gear. And I think he got some consistent coaching, and it just clicked for Bryce Benhart. He's not really dealt with injuries through his career. So for him, it was more, I think, just like the light came on. Corcoran has shown good things at times in his career, and then was just kind of beaten down. Like if you looked at Turner Corcoran a year ago, he didn't look like a guy who had been able to spend the kind of time that he would want in the weight room because he'd been rehabbing. So now he's had some time to get back and be healthy. Yeah, he missed the end of last season with an injury, but it's been a productive offseason for him. And I do feel like, just looking at him, like he's in the shape to play the position now when it wasn't necessarily the case last year. So I'll start, and then I'll hand it over to you, Connor, with answering that part of the question, that I feel better about Turner Corcoran than I think a lot of people do, because I think he feels better himself.
Yeah, you don't have to say that he's going to be like all Big Ten or whatever, you know, like I think there's real reason to think that he's got some, you know, he's built up some health now, like you said, which is a really critical part. And then, you know, continually throughout his long career now at Nebraska, he's had to play so many different roles. I mean, he's thrust right into a role as a freshman, you know, like a guy is probably not ready to, like he's had a very uneven developmental track just because of things that are out of his control. And so getting some, I think, calm and clarity on what he's supposed to do should help them. Am I expecting a huge jump from him? No, but can they survive if he is, if he's just okay? Yeah, they can, because I'll answer the second question now. Do they have any depth that's ready to play? And I think it's a two-parter. They do not have any depth at the tackle position, as we've discussed, quite a bit on this podcast. They do have depth at the interior positions, the center and the two guard spots that you actually feel good about. Either guys who have played or guys that came in highly recruited. I think what you're asking for at the tackle spots, if somebody goes down, is something beyond what they might be able to give you given their depth situation. Maybe, they have to throw in Gunnar Gatula at some point and he turns out to be a revelation. Maybe that's the case, but you can't plan on that type of thing. So, right. Generally I think the offensive line, if you go year over year, is in a much better spot than it was a year ago, because it got better throughout the season. Like we saw it happen. So I don't know, that development track doesn't have to be like a straight arrow, an escalator up. But yeah, I think you can hold it to a higher standard. I hope that answers the question.
To reference Marcus Satterfield from Friday, if Gunnar Gatula or Grant Segrin at offensive tackle turn out to be adequate or slightly better, then that's a plus for Nebraska.
We don't notice him. He was the word on Justin Evans. Right?
This is about Justin Evans, an offensive guard. And offensive guards it is important to not notice them as much. Tackles get noticed for bad, and they can get noticed for good too. But those are the two guys that Nebraska's relying on, Gatula and Segrin at offensive tackle, to get things done if something happens to Corcoran or Benhart. So Nebraska wants to get through with the seniors this year and then hand things over to that group. Plus, you have perhaps Teddy Prohaska coming back in a year, and you have Grant Bricks coming of age. And Nebraska did not get David Sanders, by the way, over the weekend. He committed to Tennessee. So unless something changes there and they come up with a few $1 million more, there will not be a 5-star offensive tackle in this class for Nebraska. But, better days ahead in recruiting. Start winning some games and get to a bowl, and then you can get a guy like David Sanders. But I'm with you, Connor, on the interior depth on the offensive line. Jason Machachak, they like him. Henry Lutovsky, when he's back, which should be soon, from the injury that has held him out so far, a calf injury. He's a depth piece at offensive guard. And Sam Sledge, too, the redshirt freshman. He's the backup center and can play guard. So, look, the offensive line this is not the 94 pipeline. Like they are fine. They, I think, are a step up with their bodies and just how they look, the size, the strength, the ability to hold up in the Big Ten. They're a step up over what Nebraska had last year, when it ranked second in the Big Ten in rushing. They can be adequate. Let's go back to Satterfield, but that should be good enough to give Dylan Ariola some time and to be able to game plan a way to run the ball too.
I want to note one more thing here, because we as it pertains to the offensive line, we often have these conversations in the off seasons, like how's the offensive line doing? How's the defensive backs doing? How are the linebackers doing? And then we look at them on these scales of like, are they good or are they bad? Like when you play football, the stuff that happens are like, these things don't happen in a vacuum, So what happens when Nebraska has a better quarterback and better wide receivers? Like, does it help your run game? Does it help your pass catching game? Like, that should theoretically, like, the better you get around any piece on the entire roster makes that piece better, or go into the shadows maybe a little bit more. So I think that's an important thing that we don't probably think about enough as well. People love to talk about the offensive line and how good or how bad it is, but it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
It is hard to have a great feeling about the line in 2023 when you score 18 points a game. It's hard to have a great feeling about any part of your offense when you score 18 points a game. So if Nebraska has the same offensive line or slightly improved, maybe moderately improved, Micah Mazuka is I think a major improvement potentially over what Nebraska had at that spot last year. If you score 28 points a game or 30 points a game, then the offensive line is just going to look better.
All right, Mitch, we have only 9 more episodes until the first game against UTEP. So get your UTEP thoughts straight. We only have so much time to prep. An appreciation to you guys for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Go check out the Locked On College Football podcast now. Plenty of summer topics, preseason topics there as well. Check out Spencer over at the Locked On College Football podcast. And you can check it out. It's in the description of this show. All you got to do is click. It's right there for you. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.